A convicted killer, allowed to walk free and return to the football pitch. Bruno Fernandes de Souza was a popular rising star of Brazilian football. In 2010, he was convicted of the murder of his girlfriend, Elisa Samudio. She fell pregnant to Bruno and refused to get an abortion. She then sued him for child support payments. On his orders, she was abducted, tortured, and strangled to death, and her body fed to his dogs. Bruno confessed and was sentenced to 22 years in prison. But after serving just 6 years, he's been released while the court considers his appeal. He's now been welcomed back to football with a contract with second-tier club Boa Esporte.
Why do you deserve to wear the soccer club's shirt so soon after being convicted of such a barbaric crime?
I am not going to respond to that question.
From today, I am only going to talk about Bruno, the football player. We are only going to talk about football.
The club says Bruno deserves a second chance, and many fans agree.
I'm in favor of him returning and reintegrating back into society.
It's an opportunity for him to restart his life, to go in the right path and show he can be better.
But his release and return to football has sparked outrage across Brazil, and several sponsors have pulled their support for the club.
As women, as activists, as human beings, this news saddens us. We are against a team that recruits someone who committed a femicide, and even if he's out of prison, he's still facing legal proceedings.
Brazil is considered one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a woman. At least 2,000 women are killed by partners, former partners or relatives every year. In 2013, Brazil had the highest female homicide rate in the world, an average of 1 woman killed every 2 hours. Last year marked a decade since the introduction of the Maria da Penha law on domestic and family violence. Named after an activist and victim of domestic violence, the landmark law established special courts and stricter sentences for offenders and offered more tools for prevention and support. While there was some improvement in cities in those 10 years, overall, lethal violence against women in Brazil increased by 24%, raising concern that the law isn't being properly implemented and that Brazil's police and justice system still aren't working for victims. Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
To discuss this, I'm joined by Cesar Munoz from Sao Paulo. He's the senior researcher for Brazil at Human Rights Watch. Cesar, thanks so much for joining us. How was this allowed to happen? Because so many people are so shocked by this story.
Yes, absolutely shocking, and it's really, I feel, a disgrace for Brazil. I mean, we have this man who was convicted of a horrendous crime, and he only spent, less than 7 years in prison for that. And I have the feeling, because of the reaction here, that this reflects an idea that is ingrained in Brazilian society, which is that men who abuse women are not really criminals. The idea of criminal here is somebody who is, selling drugs on the street. But men who abuse women are not considered, that's not considered so serious an offense. But, these men, they are really destroying Brazilian families. Their violence is having a tremendous impact on women and also on children who witness or suffer that violence.
So, there's talk of sexism, domestic violence, misogyny, but I wonder, is this less about that and more just about a really lousy justice system where this guy only served 6 years and he's out on a technicality?
Well, the Brazilian justice system is not perfect. It has a lot of problems. But I do a lot of research on criminal justice in Brazil, and the failure that I see that is the most serious is before it gets there. I mean, and this case shows it. Elisa Samudio, the woman who was killed in this case, she went to the police before that happened. In October 2009. And she filed a police report. She said that Bruno, the goalkeeper, had threatened her, that he had given her abortive substances, and they took a test of her urine at the time, but they never did the test. I mean, it took them 8 months to do the test, and by the time they got the results, she was already killed. A judge denied a protective order for her at the time. So, I mean, we see how the justice system failed to protect her and to treat her with dignity.
Yeah, that's important that you mentioned that, some important background information. Let me pose a hypothetical to you here. So you have Bruno involved in the killing of Elisa Zamudio, and it's a horrible situation. He was a part of ordering the killing. They fed her body to the dogs and so on. If he had served the 22 years of his sentence, and then he came out and Boa Esporte signed him up as the goalkeeper, would that be okay?
I think that would be fine, actually. I mean, I wouldn't hire him, personally, but, because I think, because of this really huge problem of killing of women in Brazil. But, he has not served his sentence. And not only that, he has, in the interviews that he has given after he was released, he has not even recognized any participation. He said he didn't think he made a mistake. He said that he had suffered a lot in prison, which I don't doubt, because prisons in Brazil are really horrible. But he never mentioned the suffering of Elisa Zamudio or her family. So this is a man who had not recognized what he did, or who thinks that what he did was not that serious, and that's outrageous.
And is that why so many Brazilians are so upset? Because if you look at him, you look at Boa Esporte on social media, they have pictures with him and the coach and the chairman, and he's doing his gym work as he's preparing to be the goalkeeper for the season ahead. Is that stuff rubbing it in the faces of the Brazilian people and particularly enraging them?
See, I mean, this is very interesting, the reaction to his hiring. I mean, there is definitely a section of society who sees that as a slap on the face of women in the country. And this is a country, is one of the most dangerous countries for women in the world. I mean, it has the 5th highest rate of killings of women in the world. So in that context, yeah, it's very serious. But you also see fans who go to take pictures with him, selfies, and who support him in the stadium and so forth. And I see that as part of this culture where violence against women is admitted as something that is even normal. And we have to change that, because, as long as you consider these kind of crimes, as serious as this one was, as something that is accepted culturally, it's not going to change.
Cesar, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for helping us understand the story a bit more deeply. I've been around for, 14 years in this industry. I've never come across a story like this before. It's fascinating and unnerving. Cesar, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.